Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready to dive deep into some AI today.
Sounds exciting.
We'll be looking at this guide called Managing AI Risks, Bias, Privacy, and Security.
Interesting title.
Yeah, it's from, let me see, XR1 AI Consulting. It's really aimed at, well, corporate executives.
Oh, the big wig.
Yeah, it even has, like, contact info at the bottom, like they're waiting for the phone to ring,
Yeah, straight to business.
Right. But we're going to break this down for everyone. Because these AI risks, they matter no matter who you are.
Absolutely. AI is everywhere now.
Exactly. So what's our mission for today? Well, I want to help you spot these AI risks yourself. Like out in the wild. Think about it. You see AI everywhere.
Sure.
Social media, healthcare.
Financial system?
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you the knowledge to be like, something's not right here.
It's like developing your own AI X-ray vision.
I love that. Okay, so the guide starts with this framework. They call it the 3 pillars.
Okay.
Right. Bias, privacy, and security. But here's the thing. They're not separate issues. They're all tangled up together.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all interconnected, right? So like a biased algorithm, well, that could lead to a privacy violation. Let's say, I don't know, it targets certain people unfairly because the data's bad.
Oh, that's a scary thought.
It is. It is. That's a double whammy, right? Bias and privacy all in one.
Okay, so let's break it down pillar by pillar. First up, bias.
The big one.
I think we've all heard about data bias by now,
Well,
but honestly, I'm still not 100% sure I get it.
imagine you're applying for a loan, everything's good, you've got your credit score, but you get rejected.
Yeah.
And it's because the AI judging your application, well, it was trained on data that's messed up. It might penalize people from your zip code.
Wow, seriously. Just because of where I live.
That's data bias. The AI is only as good as the information it learns from.
So even if the company, meant well, the outcome can still be totally unfair.
Exactly. And it gets even more complicated with algorithmic bias. It's like, think of a recipe. You've got all the right ingredients, but if you mess up the amounts, the dish is ruined.
I see. So even if the data's good, the AI itself can be messed up.
Right. A poorly designed algorithm, that's the problem.
Got it. Then there's, operational bias.
Yeah, that's where humans come in. Let's say an AI is, recommending who to interview for a job, but the HR person's like, nah, I'm going with my gut.
So the AI is doing its thing, but humans are messing it up.
Right. Ignoring the recommendations, bringing their own bias back in.
Okay, next pillar, privacy. This is a big one. AI needs so much data, right? But then there's our individual privacy. How do those two even work together?
Yeah, it's a tricky balance. The guide, it really emphasizes data minimization. That's key. Collecting only the data that's absolutely needed, not just hoovering everything up,
Yeah, just in case kind of thing. I get it. But even then, what about anonymization? Like removing names, stuff like that. Can't they still figure out who it's about?
Yeah, you're right to worry about that. Think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. You're missing some pieces, but you can probably still recognize the image.
Whoa, okay.
So even if it's called anonymized, it might not be as safe as we think.
That's unsettling. Okay, on to the last pillar, security. This one always makes me a little nervous, to be honest.
Understandable. AI going rogue, all that.
Right. But the guide, it focuses on something more realistic, adversarial attacks.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Hackers deliberately trying to trick the AI into making mistakes. There's a chilling example in the guide. Imagine manipulating a self-driving car, making it think a stop sign is a speed limit sign.
Yikes. No thank you. Are we really trusting our lives to AI that can be hacked that easily?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the thing is, these AI models, they're so complex, even tiny changes to the input data can have huge effects. It's kind of unpredictable.
Okay, so even if AI seems super smart, it can still be vulnerable.
That's right. And the guide, it really stresses this point. Protecting AI isn't just about, data breaches. It's about the algorithms themselves, making sure they're not messed with.
So much to think about. We've got bias, maybe in the data, maybe in the AI itself. Privacy issues, even when they try to anonymize stuff.
Yeah.
And security threats. That could make AI go totally haywire.
It's a lot to digest, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But the guide doesn't just leave us hanging with all this doom and gloom, right? There's got to be something we can do.
Absolutely. The guide shifts gears and gets into actionable strategies, things companies can actually do to fight back against these risks.
Okay, good. I like to hear that. So for each of these pillars, they've got strategies. And there are a lot. I think we should focus on the ones that really speak to, our listener, someone who's trying to understand AI better. maybe even make a difference themselves.
Yeah, I agree. Let's highlight the ones that empower people, help them think critically about AI and how it affects their lives. For example, the guide talks about diverse teams in AI development.
Oh, right. The more diverse the people building the AI, the less likely it is to have those blind spots, right? The unconscious biases.
Exactly. And this connects directly to you, the listener. When you see AI systems out in the world, ask yourself, who built this? If a company emphasizes diversity in their teams, that's a good sign. It means they're at least trying to address bias.
That's a great point. I'm going to start paying more attention to that.
Yeah.
Now, another strategy they highlight is explainable AI, or XAI. Can you explain what that means and why it matters?
Sure. Imagine you're denied a loan by an AI, right? And all you get is no. No explanation, nothing. Frustrating.
Yeah, but frustrating.
Yeah. So explainable AI, it's about making sure the AI can show its work. Like, show you the math behind the decision so you can at least understand how it got there.
That's huge. So it's about transparency, right? If you can see the reasoning, you're more likely to trust the decision, even if you don't agree with it.
Precisely. It allows you to assess the process, right? And maybe even spot any flaws in the logic.
Okay, last one for now. Stakeholder engagement. What is that, and how does it relate to managing these AI risks?
Well, think about all the people who might be affected by an AI system. Not just the developers, but the users, the customers, even the general public, right? Stakeholder engagement, it's about bringing all those people to the table to discuss the potential risks and benefits.
So it's like making sure that people who will be impacted by the AI have a voice in how it's developed and used.
Exactly. Recognizing that AI, it's a powerful tool. It can really impact society. And we all have a role to play in shaping its development.
This is fascinating, but wow, we've covered a lot of ground already. I think we need to take a break. We'll be right back to delve deeper into these strategies for managing AI risks. Don't go anywhere.
We're back, ready to keep digging into those AI strategies.
You know, before the break, we were talking about that stakeholder engagement thing.
Right.
Getting everyone involved who might be affected by the AI.
Super important.
But how does that, actually work in the real world? I mean,
Well, let's say a company is developing an AI for healthcare, right?
okay.
So instead of just focusing on the tech stuff, they go out and get input from everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah, doctors, nurses, the patients themselves,
Oh, that's interesting.
even ethicists.
Okay, so they're not just thinking about the code.
No, it's bigger than that.
They're thinking about how it'll actually be used by real people.
Exactly. They're asking tough questions like, could this system, create bias in treatment?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
How will it impact patient privacy? Things like that.
So it's about getting all those different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Not just from the tech people
Right, from the people who actually be using it, interacting with it.
in their daily lives.
Exactly.
And it could even, lead to a better AI, right?
Absolutely. If patients are involved in the design,
They might point out things that developers hadn't even thought of.
you got it.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, what other strategies, really jumped out at you from the guide?
Let me see. We talked about diverse teams, explainable AI, stakeholder engagement. Oh, regular audits.
Audits,
Yeah.
for the AI.
Yeah. Think of it like a checkup for your algorithm.
Okay,
You wouldn't just assume your car's running perfect forever.
right, true. You got to take it in for maintenance.
Same with AI. You need to regularly check it, make sure it's still on track.
Okay, I can kind of see that. But what does an AI audit even look like? Are they I don't know, hooking it up to machines and scanning it?
Uh-huh. Not quite that dramatic.
Okay.
It's more about examining, the data the AI was trained on,
Right.
the design of the algorithm itself,
Uh-huh.
and then the outcomes it's producing.
So it's about looking for signs of bias, right?
Yeah, that might have crept in,
Right.
intentionally or not.
Got it. So who actually does these audits? Is it something companies can do themselves?
They can, but it's also good to get an outside expert to take a look.
Like a second opinion.
Exactly. Someone who can be more objective.
That makes sense. Okay, so audits, they're good for bias. But what about privacy? What strategies did the guide recommend for, safeguarding all that data AI needs?
Data minimization is key.
Right. We touched on that earlier.
But it's worth repeating. Don't collect data just because you might need it someday.
Yeah, that just-in-case trap.
Exactly. Only collect what's absolutely necessary for the AI to do its job.
Okay, seems like common sense, but I bet a lot of companies are still collecting way too much.
Probably. But even when they are careful about what they collect, they need to keep it safe.
Oh yeah, security.
The guide really recommends strong encryption.
Encryption, scrambling the data.
Yep. So even if someone gets in, they can't actually understand it.
It's like putting it in a vault or something.
Exactly, as that extra layer of protection.
Makes sense. But, what about threats from inside the company?
Oh, that's a good point.
Like, what if someone who does have access, misuses it?
That's where access controls come in, making sure only the right people can get to the sensitive stuff.
Like a need-to-know basis.
Exactly. Limits the potential for, internal breaches or misuse.
Smart. Okay, we've talked about bias, privacy, now security.
Mm.
Those adversarial attacks we talked about.
Right, right.
What can companies do to protect themselves from those?
One promising approach, it's called adversarial training.
Adversarial training.
Yeah, it's like giving your AI self-defense lessons.
Okay, now I really want to hear about this.
Imagine you're teaching someone to spot counterfeit money, right?
Okay,
You'd show them examples of real bills and fake ones.
right, to see the difference.
Adversarial training's like that. You expose the AI to these adversarial examples.
Examples of how it could be tricked.
Exactly. And then you teach it to recognize them, defend against them.
So you're basically showing the AI all the ways it could be fooled and then making it stronger.
Yep. You're strengthening its defenses, making it more robust.
So it's less likely to fall for those tricks in the real world.
Yeah.
Fascinating. It's like a constant game of cat and mouse,
The attackers try new things. The AI has to keep learning.
Okay, so audits for bias, encryption, and access controls for privacy, and adversarial training for security. These are all pretty technical, though, right?
Yeah, they are.
Is there anything in the guide that's more about the bigger picture? Like the culture around AI within a company?
Oh, yeah, that's crucial too. The guide talks about governance.
Governance, what does that mean?
Like having the right policies in place for AI
Okay.
and accountability, making sure people are following those policies.
So it's not enough to just have the technical solutions.
No, you need the right oversight too.
So what does that look like, practically speaking?
Well, some companies create AI ethics committees, for example.
Okay.
They develop really detailed AI policies and they make sure like everything they do with AI aligns with, ethical standards.
So it's like setting the ground rules for how AI will be used.
Yeah, and making sure everyone's playing by those rules.
Got it. And this is where, I guess, that culture of trust and transparency comes in, right?
Right. We talked about explainable AI to build trust with users.
Right.
But you also need that trust internally.
Yeah, within the company itself.
You can't just say, trust the AI and expect it to work.
No, that won't cut it.
It's got to be more than just words, right?
Okay, so how do they actually build that trust?
Well, it starts with involving employees in these discussions.
Discussions about AI risk.
Yeah, at all levels of the company.
So everyone in the loop.
Exactly. Create a space where people feel comfortable, raising concerns, asking questions.
Even challenging the status quo if something doesn't seem right.
Exactly. It's about education, open communication.
Making sure everyone understands not just the exciting parts of AI, but also the potential problems.
Absolutely. And this transparency should go beyond the company too,
Oh,
The guide encourages companies to be open with their customers, the public.
about how they're using AI.
Yeah, and what they're doing to manage those risks.
I like that. It's about being honest,
Yeah.
right? Acknowledging that AI isn't perfect.
Exactly. Being upfront about the limitations, the challenges.
That honesty actually builds more trust than, like, pretending everything's perfect.
For sure. It's about being realistic, responsible.
Okay, I think that's a good place to pause for a second. We've covered so much in this part. All those strategies, the ethical stuff,
A lot to think about.
but we're not done yet. Join us for the final part of this deep dive, where we'll see how companies actually measure their success in managing these risks. And we're back. For the final part of our AI risk deep dive, remember we've been talking about bias, privacy, and security, those three pillars.
Right, and all the ways companies can try to manage those risks. Lots of strategies.
Exactly. But now it's time to get down to, like, how do we know if any of this is actually working?
Ah, yes. Measuring success. It's one thing to talk the talk, but are companies actually walking the walk?
Right. It's not enough to just say, oh, yeah, we're doing all the right things. You got to prove it.
Yeah, absolutely. The guide, it really emphasizes this. Managing AI risk, it's not a one-and-done thing. It's ongoing. You got to constantly track your progress.
Okay, so let's get specific. What are some signs, some real indicators that a company is actually making headway on these risks?
Well, the guide, it recommends looking at specific metrics across all three pillars. We've touched on a few already, like fairness metrics, incident response time, but let's dig a little deeper, shall we?
Let's start with bias. Give me an example of a metric that really show me a company's taking this seriously.
Okay, one that's getting a lot of attention is the disparate impact ratio.
Disparate impact ratio. Sounds fancy.
It's basically checking if the AI is treating different groups of people equally.
Okay, so how would that work?
Let's say an AI is being used for, I don't know, loan approvals. You could compare the approval rates for men versus women or for different racial groups.
So if there's a big difference in those approval rates, that could be a sign of bias, even if it wasn't on purpose.
Exactly. And if a company's tracking this metric, well, it means they're aware of the potential problem and they're trying to measure it. That's a good sign, at least a starting point.
Right. It's not just about taking their word for it. You got to see the data.
Transparency is key.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the outcomes either. You want to look at the data the AI was trained on, the design of the algorithm.
Like we said before, the AI is only as good as the info it learns from. And even then, the algorithm itself could be biased.
Exactly. It's like detective work, right? Trying to understand why the AI is making certain decisions. And that's where those audits come in, those regular checkups.
Ah, the audits. So we're back to those. Okay, what about privacy? What kind of metrics show me they're really committed to protecting my data?
One big one is compliance with data privacy regulations. Like GDPR in Europe, CCPA here in California.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah.
They're all about setting rules for how companies can use our data.
Right. Strict standards for collecting, using, storing data. So if a company says they're all about privacy, well, you should be able to check how well they're actually following those rules.
Makes sense. Compliance, that's like the bare minimum, right?
Exactly. And they should be open about it, transparent, make it easy for users to understand what's happening with their data.
Okay, so beyond compliance, what else?
They can track things like data breaches, how often they happen, how serious they are.
Oh, yeah, those are never good.
No, the goal is to prevent them entirely, of course. But if they do happen, it's all about how the company responds.
Right, how quickly they fix the problem, what they do to make sure it doesn't happen again.
That shows their commitment.
Yeah.
Being transparent about it, notifying users quickly.
Okay, last one, security. We've talked about incident response time, but what other metrics are out there?
Well, there's this interesting one called time to compromise.
Time to compromise.
It measures how long it takes a hacker to actually break into the AI system.
Oh, I see. So the longer it takes, the better the security.
Exactly. And companies can use this to find weaknesses, make improvements. They can also track how many attacks are successful versus how many are just attempts. Gives them a sense of how well their defenses are holding up.
So it's about always being on guard, always looking for ways to strengthen those defenses before a real attack happens.
And one more thing, user awareness.
Oh, yeah. That's important.
Companies can use surveys, quizzes to see if people actually understand the risks.
Because even the best tech can be undermined if people aren't careful.
Right. Human error, that's a big factor in a lot of breaches.
It's about more than just tech. It's about the culture, making sure everyone understands security and how to protect themselves.
It all comes back to that human element. It's not enough to just build secure systems. We've got to empower people to use them safely and responsibly.
Wow, we've covered so much ground today. From those 3 pillars of risk to all these strategies, and now these metrics for measuring success. What's the one thing you really hope our listeners take away from this whole deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Managing AI risk, it's not just on the companies, it's on all of us. We all need to be informed, engaged, asking the right questions.
And speaking up, using our voices to make sure AI is used ethically responsibly.
For the benefit of all of us, not just a select few.
Exactly. It's about shaping the future of AI together. So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep demanding that AI be used for good. That's what it's all about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.